This is Jill Pack with the Seasons of Joy podcast. This is episode number 108, entitled Understanding Your Context Filter. Are you a woman of faith who is struggling to navigate your current season of life? Do you feel like life is just happening to you instead of for you? My name is Jill Pack, and I'm a certified faith-based life coach and a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I want you to know that no matter your season or your circumstance, it is possible to create a more joyful life, and I would love to show you how. Are you ready? Let's go. Hello, my friends. Welcome to this week's podcast episode. I am so glad that you are here. I just got off a group coaching call with my Season of Connection group, where we are working on how to create more connection or greater connection in our relationships by learning how to manage ourselves. I love the women in there and their willingness to share and learn from one another. Women are pretty amazing, especially when we love and support each other. I am so grateful for the amazing women in my circle of influence. I want to also remind you that if you are struggling with the unique challenges that come with being in the mid-season of life, I would love to be your coach. Whether it is with the relationship that you have with yourself, with your spouse, with your adult child, with your coworker, or with your best friend, I invite you to schedule a free clarity call with me to learn more about how to create desired change in your life. So just visit my website, www.seasons-coaching.com, and click on the Work With Me tab at the top of the page. You can find the link in the show notes as well. We can chat, and I can tell you more about the different ways that we can work together. So now on to this week's episode. One of the first things that I work with my clients on is understanding the difference between thoughts and circumstances. Now, I've talked about this before, both of these things before on this podcast, many times before, in fact, but I don't think I can talk about it too much. This is one of the foundational concepts to understand if you want to create something different in your life. Understanding the difference between these two concepts allows you the opportunity to act instead of being acted upon. So, for example, my husband is my circumstance and I am his. The words we say are also circumstances. They aren't necessarily good or bad. They just are. There isn't a problem until we each have a thought about the other person and what they said. Now, does that mean we have to love what the other person says or does? No, of course not. But we empower ourselves to be our best selves when we realize that it's the way we are thinking about what they said or did that causes us to get upset, not the actual words or behaviors. Understanding this allows us to decide on purpose to act in a certain way instead of reacting to the situation or blaming them for how we feel or how we're showing up, right? So here's an example. Let's say that my husband may not wipe off the counter after he makes himself a sandwich, right? And I begin to start to feel frustrated because I'm thinking that he should clean up after himself. And from that frustration, I make some passive-aggressive statements complaining how he should do it differently, or I clean up after him while giving him the silent treatment. I blame him for my frustration and I distance myself from him. We repeat this cycle often without really having an open conversation about it because I think he should just know. And in the end, I am miserable and I don't like the person I'm being. Now, if you have been with me long enough, you can see the CTFAR model in this situation, right? Husband making a sandwich and wiping off the counter 0 times is the circumstance, right? There's no emotion behind it. There's no meaning yet. But my belief that he should know better and that he should clean up after himself is what is the thing that is causing me to feel frustrated, which in turn fuels the behaviors of the passive aggressive behavior, complaining, silent treatment, playing the martyr, and distancing myself. All of this creates my experience of not liking him or me in this situation, which ties back to my belief that he should be and do differently than he is. However, when I can slow this scenario down, I can learn from the frustration I am feeling. This emotion is trying to tell me something if I listen. Now, I don't have to be mad or ashamed that I feel this way. It is actually pretty normal to feel frustration when people say or do things we wish they didn't, right? So the first lesson that I want to point out is that my emotion of frustration that I'm feeling is a clue that I am trying to change another person, which never works, right? The more I try to, the more frustration I will feel. And as I've said before on this podcast, it doesn't mean we have to love what someone says or does. We can just stop resisting who they are and what they do. It doesn't mean we don't have a conversation about cleaning up after making sandwiches, but we don't have to have that conversation from a place of frustration. So the first lesson is, what is the emotion trying to teach me in this situation, right? And oftentimes that first thing is that I'm trying to change something that I don't have control over, right? And this then leads me to a second lesson, which is I am bumping up against something in my personal context filter. So what is a personal context filter? A personal context filter is like a pair of special glasses that everyone wears, but each person's glasses are different because they're made up of their own stories, what they believe, what they think is important, and where they come from. And these glasses help them see the world in their own special way. This means that when they look at a problem, a chance to do something, or when they're talking to someone else, their glasses make them see and think about things in their own unique way. This is how they decide to handle different things that happen in life. So, what are things that make up our context filter? Here are a few examples. Our past experiences, the results or outcomes that we have in our life, our culture, whether it be ethnic, religious, family, regional, national, right? Our true self, which I think includes our divine self, that spirit, soul part of us, that our natural abilities, our personalities, our genetics, right? It also includes our current emotional state. That is important, right? The way we see things often comes from the emotional state we are in. It also is made up of our core beliefs and our values, right? Those things that are important to us. All of these things make up the lens through which we view life. So back to my example. What would be in my personal context filter? Well, I value clean spaces. I enjoy feelings of peace when my environment is clean. I like to clean up after myself, and that includes wiping the counter. In our culture, there are a lot of examples of influencers or people that we follow that show ways that we can be more organized or more clean and how great it is, right? We get messages that it's important and it matters. It's also in my personality to tidy up. In my faith, we're also taught to take care of our belongings because they are in our stewardship. We're just taking care of things that ultimately belong to God, right? And we're just taking care of them. I also have a belief that adults should be able to clean up after themselves. So the frustration I feel reinforces those beliefs, right? That belief that clean countertops would make me feel better and that my husband should change. This filter then becomes the lens through which I view my husband's actions, which lead to my thoughts about how he should know better and that he should clean up for himself, which creates my feelings of frustration that fuels how I'm showing up in that situation as the person I actually don't want to be, right? The feeling of frustration is a clue that I'm bumping up against my personal context filter, and that some way it's not in alignment with how I'm behaving, right? Or how I'm feeling. And again, I have an opportunity to learn from my feelings of frustration, right? The first one is it can often teach me that I'm trying to change something that I don't have control over. And the second one is I can begin to question my subjective reality, right? And get curious about my personal context filter, right? So it teaches me that maybe I'm trying to change something I don't have control over. And it's also teaching me in that moment that I may want to look at my context filter. What is affecting the way I'm viewing the situation? Is it true that I like clean spaces? Yeah, and that's totally okay. I like that value, but it may not be someone else's value, or at least to the same degree, right? On some level, I may also be believing that my way of cleaning up after making sandwiches is the right way. But in reality, it is just an opinion, and people have different opinions of how and when to clean up. There are also all kinds of personalities, and there are no right or wrong ones. There are just personality traits, right? And some of them we prefer more than others, and that's okay. We even all have our own idea of what tidy even is, right? It can mean different things for different people. For some, putting the food away is enough for now, and they'll do the rest later. For others, it's about putting the food away, wiping the counters, loading the dishwasher, sweeping the floor right after you're done, making the sandwich, right? All those things have to happen simultaneously, or at least relatively soon, right? But the truth is, neither one is right. They just are different. So for me, I do like clean countertops. So I've decided I want to keep that in my filter, right? I can make requests of others in my family to clean up after themselves, for sure. I think we want to make more requests than we do. Oftentimes we just assume people should know, right? But when they don't, I also get to decide to change my filter to include that everyone's definition of tidy is different. It doesn't have to mean anything has gone wrong. And I get to decide that if a clean counter means that much to me, I can actually wipe it off without being resentful if I want to. It can be important to me without it needing to be important to someone else. It really is okay. And when I can begin looking at what is part of my personal context filter, I can begin examining it and deciding what I want to keep or let go of. This really is a lot of what coaching or self-coaching is. It's taking a look at what's in our context filter and questioning it and deciding on purpose what we want in there. So here's another example. Let's say you grew up believing that getting a college degree was very important. You went to college, your parents went to college, and you got your college degree, right? It was just part of your family culture. You have a successful career, and you are able to provide for your family in a really good way. And you teach your children that education is important, and you believe that attending college is just a given, right? You value learning and education. You believe that a college degree is key to living a fulfilling and productive life. Of course, college is the logical next step after high school. But then one of your children decides college is not for them, and you can't believe it. It doesn't make sense to you. So can you see your personal context filter at play here? Viewing their decision, which is your circumstance, through this lens shapes your experience. You feel sad and disappointed, maybe frustrated or angry even, because you're making it mean that everything has gone wrong and there's no way that their life can be good as it could be if they were to go to college. It just feels so true, right? Yet how do you show up in your relationship with your child when looking at the situation through this context filter? Are you behaving in a way that helps you be the parent you want to be? Do you feel more connected to your child? My guess is the answer to both of those is probably no. And again, it does not mean you have to love their choice, but it doesn't mean it doesn't have to derail you either. This is when your emotions can be a clue that I've been talking about from the beginning, right? That it's time to take a deeper look into your personal context filter. Examining those things may not be serving you, right? You want to examine those things that might not be serving you in your relationship with your child. Curiosity is key to shifting your lens. So what if you're wrong? What if it is possible that your child might even be happier if they don't pursue a college education? It might be possible. What if they're learning exactly what they need to learn by not going to college? What if whatever they decide to do, it will actually all be okay? What if your belief is just your opinion and it isn't the same for your child? What if that really is okay? Now, of course, you might feel disappointed. Of course, it makes sense because of your filter. Let yourself feel that. But what if you can still be the parent you want to be and have a very connected relationship with them, whether they choose to go to college or not? Using your emotions as clues can help you use these questions or questions like these to help you shift your personal context filter in a way that can help you show up in your life and in your relationships as the person you want to be, the person you like being, right? We don't want to judge or be critical of our personal context filters. That is important to remember. It isn't about being mad about it or thinking you're doing it wrong. That is not the point. Objective self-examination or awareness opens the doors to change. Now, of course, we view life through the lens we do. It makes total sense because of how we were raised, the experiences we've had, and the things we value. We can validate that and still decide to change our filter. Again, the work I do as a life coach is to help people take a deeper look into what makes up their personal context filters, question them, and decide what they want to keep and what they want to let go of so that they can show up in their life and in their relationships as the person they want to be, the person they like being. When we take time to really look at the lens through which we see life, we can begin to see how this filter affects what we make it all mean, the emotions we feel, our behaviors, and our overall experiences. If you're ready to learn more about what makes up your personal context filter so that you can create a life you love, I would love to be your coach. And I can help you do just that. So schedule a free clarity call with me and let's get started. Thank you for tuning in to the Seasons of Joy podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And if you liked what you heard, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share with your friends and family. If you want to learn more about me or how to work with me, just visit my website, www.seasons-coaching.com, and have a joyful week.